Can't wait to feel you inside me again. Meet at our place in an hour. Sierra. I read the message on my husband's phone, and in that moment, the world around me froze. The gentle clinking of silverware, the warm yellow lights of our kitchen, all of it faded into a cold, hollow silence. My chest tightened like someone had just fired a bullet through the trust I had built over 6 years of marriage. And him? He didn't notice a thing, still shoveling pasta into his mouth like a man with no conscience, no shame. Just minutes ago, it was supposed to be a normal Wednesday night dinner. Ethan, my husband, barely looked at me across the table. His eyes kept darting down, distracted. Something was off. He hadn't touched me in weeks. Conversations had grown mechanical. The man who used to hold my gaze with warmth now seemed like a stranger who couldn't wait to leave the room. My eyes drifted to his phone beside his plate. A message flashed, just one preview. But that was enough. I shouldn't have. I knew it was wrong, but instinct screamed, "Open it!" I unlocked it. Still the same code we'd shared since our honeymoon. And there it was. The message that detonated everything. Can't wait to feel you inside me again. Meet at our place in an hour. Sierra. I couldn't breathe. You okay, Mads? Ethan asked casually, using that voice I once found charming. I looked up at him, set the phone down screen up on the table. He froze, eyes wide, then panic. A crack in the carefully crafted mask. Madeline, I can explain. Don't bother, I said, my voice like glass, sharp and fragile. Just tell me one thing. How long? He hesitated, swallowed, shoulders dropped. 6 months. 6 months. Half a year of sleeping next to me, of fake kisses, of smiling while slicing my soul apart one lie at a time. Who is she? I asked, even though I already knew. Sierra Monroe, an interior designer. She worked on a project with my firm. I laughed, a short, bitter sound. And she made you feel alive again, didn't she? He didn't answer. He didn't have to. I stood up, slow and calm. I didn't yell. I didn't cry. I simply walked toward the door, grabbed my purse. Where are you going? He asked, his voice finally laced with concern. I turned, eyes brimming with a truth too heavy to ignore. I'm leaving, I said quietly. And when I come back, you better be gone, because whoever you are now, I don't know you anymore. I stepped out into the cold night, the wind biting my cheeks, but I kept walking. My heart pounded with each step, but my spine felt straighter than ever. The illusion had shattered, our so-called perfect life obliterated in one brutal flash. And yet, as I walked farther from the man who betrayed me, I felt something unexpected. Strength. That night, I didn't go home. I checked into a modest hotel near downtown. The room was quiet, but my head was a storm. I stared at the ceiling, tears sliding down my temples into the pillow. How could he? How could the man who promised forever give his body, his loyalty to someone else, and smile in my face while doing it? I could have drowned in that pain. But I didn't, because something inside me whispered, this is not the end. This is the beginning of a war. And I was just getting started. I'm sorry, Mrs. Carter, but your husband hasn't just been seeing one woman. There are at least 4 others. I have photos, locations, credit card records, everything. The private investigator's words hit like a punch to the gut. I sat at my kitchen table, frozen, hands trembling as I flipped through the damning evidence. Each photo was a slap in the face. Each line of text another bullet straight through what remained of my heart. It wasn't just Sierra Monroe. There was Lacey, Angela, Heather, and one unnamed woman he'd brought to a hotel under the alias Company Associate. I almost laughed. Ethan wasn't just a liar. He was a full-blown predator, and I'd been sleeping next to him like a fool. After walking out that night, I didn't go back home. I checked into a quiet hotel downtown, not to hide, but to think. I needed the truth, the whole truth, not just about Sierra, but about what Ethan had truly been doing behind my back. I called Jillian, my best friend, the one who'd gone through her own nightmare divorce. She had once told me, if you ever suspect anything, don't Google it. Call Todd. He's the best in the business. So I called Todd. Within 24 hours, he delivered a thick folder and a grim look. "You might want to brace yourself," he said. "I don't want comfort," I replied. "I want the truth." Inside that folder was everything. Photos of Ethan entering hotels with multiple women, receipts, plane tickets, dinner reservations, text transcripts. But what shattered me most was the financial records. Thousands upon thousands of dollars spent, our money, on jewelry, hotel suites, weekend getaways, one apartment in Harborview. He never mentioned that. Not once. A necklace worth $8,000, recipient Sierra Monroe, first-class flight to Miami, solo, but booked a room for two. I didn't cry. Not this time. Instead, I felt something rise, something cold and sharp. I picked up my phone. "Todd, I want everything on Sierra Monroe, where she lives, what she does, how she affords it. I want to know it all." The Harborview apartment was everything I expected. Sleek, luxurious, and far beyond what an average interior designer could afford. Todd had obtained a temporary access code to the lobby. I walked in like I owned the place. The door was unlocked. She was expecting Ethan. "Sierra?" I called out, my voice echoing through the minimalist open concept space. From the bedroom, a lazy voice answered. "Ethan? That was fast." And then she appeared. A tall, raven-haired woman in a silk robe that barely clung to her surgically perfected frame. When she saw me, her smirk faltered. Just for a second. "Who are you?" "I'm the woman whose husband you've been screwing for the last 6 months." She blinked, then smiled. "Oh, so you're Madeline. I was wondering when you'd show up to see what your boring little husband actually wants in bed." Before I could think, my hand flew. Smack! A crisp, satisfying sound echoed through the apartment as her head jerked sideways. She gasped, touching her cheek. "You're going to regret that," she hissed. "Ethan's leaving me for you, isn't he?" I stepped closer, forcing her against the wall. "Let me give you a little reality check, sweetheart. He's broke. Everything he's been spending on you, hotels, gifts, this apartment, it's our money." "You've been bleeding a marriage dry and calling it love." Her smug mask cracked, just a flicker, then returned. "We'll see about that," she sneered. "This isn't over, Mrs. Carter." I watched her slink back into the shadows of her expensive lair, bile burning in my throat. "No," I thought as I left. "This is just the beginning." That night, I didn't sleep. I stared at the ceiling of my hotel room, fists clenched, mind racing. Ethan hadn't just cheated. He'd built a secret life, a whole web of betrayal, financed by my trust, my savings, my love. But he made one mistake. He underestimated me. I wasn't going to scream. I wasn't going to beg. I was going to burn everything down. And I'd start with Sierra. "I don't just want a divorce, Madeline." Danielle Sharp, my attorney, looked up from the thick file on her desk. "I want him to lose everything, and I know exactly how we'll make that happen." That's when I knew I had found the right person. Danielle wasn't warm. She wasn't soft. She wasn't there to coddle me. She was a legal weapon in lipstick and heels, and I needed all the firepower I could get. On the desk between us sat a folder compiled by Todd, my private investigator, page after page of documented betrayal. Hotel receipts, text logs, financial transfers, photos of Ethan with Sierra and other women. Danielle flipped through it like a seasoned general reviewing enemy intelligence. "Did you know he transferred over $180,000 from your joint accounts to an undisclosed one in just over a year?" she asked without looking up. I nodded, jaw tight. I want it all back, and more. Danielle smiled, not kindly, but like a shark who smelled blood. "Here's the plan. We file for an emergency divorce petition and move to freeze all his assets. We build a case that he used marital funds to facilitate extramarital affairs, a clear case of financial misconduct." I exhaled slowly. For the first time in weeks, I felt like I could breathe again. This wasn't just grief anymore. This was war. Later that night, Ethan sent me a message. "I've moved out. If you want to handle this like adults, don't drag this into court." I didn't reply, but in my mind I whispered, You have no idea what court even looks like, Ethan. I'm not here to be reasonable. I'm here to end you. Just 3 days later, our legal team delivered the first strike, an emergency divorce filing and a court motion to freeze Ethan's assets based on evidence of gross misuse of marital funds. Danielle called it Phase 1. Ethan? He called me, screaming, "You're trying to ruin me, Madeline! What the hell are you thinking?" I hung up. I didn't need to explain anything. The courtroom would speak for me. At the first hearing, I walked in wearing black, simple, sharp, and deliberate. Ethan looked thinner, paler, sitting next to a young, clueless attorney who probably thought he could fix this quietly. Danielle stood, calm as ever, and began presenting the evidence. Transaction records, jewelry receipts, hotel bookings, flight itineraries, photos, voice messages. Everything lined up like knives on a table. Ethan's lawyer didn't say much. What could he say? The judge reviewed the evidence. His expression said it all. This case was going to get very expensive for my husband. Afterward, in the courthouse hallway, Ethan followed me. "Madeline," he called. "Can't we talk like adults?" I turned slowly. Adults don't lie for over a year and drain joint accounts to pay for their side pieces. He clenched his jaw. "You'll regret this. You're humiliating me publicly." I raised an eyebrow. "This isn't humiliation. This is just exposure." That evening, Danielle and I toasted in her office over 2 glasses of Pinot Noir. "I've seen cheating husbands," she said, "but this one's an overachiever. And Sierra, she's the key." I looked at a glossy photo of Sierra Monroe in her luxury apartment, posing like a magazine cover. "She's not just a mistress," Danielle continued. "If we prove she intentionally pursued a married man for financial gain, we can sue her directly. Take everything she's ever bought with Ethan's money." I swirled my wine. Let's start there. This wasn't just about money anymore. It wasn't even just about revenge. This was about taking back control of my name, my dignity, my power. If Ethan and Sierra thought they could use me as collateral damage in their twisted little fantasy, they were about to find out that Madeline Carter doesn't get discarded. She gets even. "She's just doing this to ruin my life out of jealousy," Ethan shouted in court. "Madeline fabricated everything. I never misused any marital assets." His voice echoed across the courtroom like a tantrum. But I didn't flinch. I didn't roll my eyes. I didn't blink. Because I knew one thing for certain. Only drowning men thrash that hard. The second Ethan got hit with the emergency divorce and asset freeze, he went into attack mode. He filed a counter lawsuit accusing me of evidence tampering, defamation, and, absurdly, emotional sabotage. Danielle, of course, wasn't fazed. Classic gaslighting. When they can't refute the truth, they smear your character. But it didn't stop there. Ethan hired a PR firm. Suddenly, my name was floating around social media, framed as the vindictive ex-wife trying to ruin a good man's life. His people leaked carefully edited statements, pity-laced posts, and half-truths disguised as confessions. She never supported my career. Our marriage had been dead for years. I just want peace, but she wants revenge. And of course, the comments came flooding in. "She sounds unhinged. Just another bitter ex." Poor Ethan. "Stay strong, man." I wanted to scream, to post screenshots, to expose everything. But Danielle stopped me. "Don't feed the trolls. Let the courtroom speak. Let the evidence work." And so I did. Quiet, watching, building. Ethan wasn't done. He sent me a handwritten note, a pathetic attempt at a settlement. "If you walk away now, I'll give you the house. Let's not drag this out. We can both move on with dignity." I lit the letter on fire. He wasn't offering peace. He was negotiating surrender because he knew what was coming. Then came the real opening. Todd, my trusted private investigator, called one morning with a voice that sounded like he'd won the lottery. "You might want to sit down for this," he said. "Turns out Sierra Monroe isn't just sleeping with Ethan. She's also cozying up to a certain Charles Whitmore." I froze. "Who?" "60-something real estate tycoon, owns half the coast, married to Evelyn Whitmore. That Evelyn. Sierra's been playing them both." A grin spread across my face like wildfire. "Get me proof." I said. Photos, locations, financial trails, everything. Already on it, he replied. We're gonna bury her. 2 days later, I stared at a photo of Sierra wrapped around a silver-haired man at a rooftop bar in Malibu. Her lips were inches from his. His hand was on her thigh. Charles Whitmore, husband of one of the most powerful socialites in the state. If Sierra thought Ethan was her golden goose, Charles was the entire damn vault. Danielle nearly choked on her coffee when I showed her. Oh, this just got so much more fun. We weren't just going to win. We were going to scorch the earth they walked on. Ethan still didn't know any of this. He thought the worst was over, that all I wanted was alimony and a clean exit. But I had learned something about men like Ethan. They don't believe you'll fight back. They think you'll cry, collapse, beg. But I wasn't that woman anymore. I was the woman loading the next bullet. We scheduled our next court hearing, but I had something even bigger brewing. I didn't just want Ethan to lose money. I didn't just want Sierra to be exposed. I wanted the entire social circle they adored, the glamorous, hollow world they craved, to turn on them, to watch them squirm, to hear the gasps, the whispers, the judgment. I wanted their downfall to be public, poetic, and permanent. And Evelyn Whitmore? She was about to become my secret weapon. I had a feeling Charles was cheating, Evelyn Whitmore said as she sipped her wine, eyes like sharpened crystal. But I didn't expect his mistress to be the same woman who destroyed your marriage. Well, Madeline, it looks like we have a common enemy. I sat frozen, not with fear, but with the strange electric calm that comes when you realize you're not fighting alone anymore. Evelyn Whitmore wasn't someone easily angered, but when she was, entire reputations burned. And now I had just handed her the match. It all started with the photo Todd sent me. Sierra draped over Charles Whitmore, real estate mogul, in a rooftop bar that probably cost more per night than most people make in a month. Her hands on his chest, his fingers tracing the hem of her dress. This wasn't just a casual fling. This was strategy. Sierra Monroe had graduated from homewrecker to full-scale social climber. I didn't waste time. I wrote a letter, not an email, not a text, a handwritten note on thick ivory paper. Mrs. Whitmore, I believe we share a very unfortunate connection, a woman named Sierra Monroe. If you have 10 minutes, I'd like to show you something. Madeline Carter. 3 days later, her response arrived, embossed, sealed, and simple. Friday, 2 p.m., Wexford Estates. Bring proof. I did. Bank records, hotel receipts, photos of Sierra and Charles, and a message Sierra had sent Ethan. Charles is older, richer, but not as fun in bed. I placed everything on the marble table in Evelyn's sitting room. She reviewed it silently, eyes narrowing with every flip of the page. When she looked up, it wasn't sadness I saw. It was fire. What's your plan? She asked. I want her humiliated, I said. Not just exposed. Erased from every room she's clawed her way into. Evelyn nodded, almost admiringly. And I'll help you. We picked the stage carefully. The Westbridge Annual Charity Gala. A playground for the rich, vain, and scandal-prone. Sierra and Ethan were guaranteed to show, basking in their new power couple status. They'd smile, they'd pose, they'd gloat, and we would destroy them. Danielle got to work with Todd, gathering fresh footage, hotel entrances, wire transfers, and Sierra's digital footprints that all traced back to Charles Whitmore's wallet. But Evelyn? She had the ace. I'll make sure every socialite, every whisper network, and every hungry journalist is in that ballroom, she said. Let's make sure there's no escape. Just days before the gala, the first bomb dropped. A video appeared online. Sierra exiting the Ritz with Charles, laughing, lipstick smudged, her hand on his belt. Anonymous source, the caption read. It went viral within hours. Publicists scrambled. Ethan disappeared. Sierra stopped posting entirely. But we knew. The real show was still ahead. That night, I stood before my closet, fingertips grazing each hanger. I didn't reach for something glittering. I chose black, sleek, elegant, final. Not to mourn a marriage, but to bury two reputations. As I stared at my reflection, I whispered the words I hadn't dared say out loud until now. This ends tomorrow. For Sierra, for Ethan, and for me, it begins again. The tearing sound of a silk echoed across the ballroom. Sierra screamed as Evelyn Whitmore ripped open her dress in front of 300 stunned guests. Cameras flashed. Ethan stood frozen, and I sipped my champagne, smiling. The game was over, and I had won. The Westbridge Annual Charity Gala was always a spectacle, a parade of curated elegance, polished smiles, and carefully constructed illusions. This year, the spotlight was reserved for the hot new couple, Ethan Carter and his glamorous designer girlfriend, Sierra Monroe. They arrived draped in confidence and couture, sipping on compliments and soaking in stares, but little did they know. Every step they took on that marble floor was one step closer to the trap I had meticulously designed. I entered fashionably late, 17 minutes to be exact, long enough for them to feel safe, settled, admired. I wore black, simple, timeless, sharp as a blade. Danielle gave me the nod. Evelyn was already in place, a vision in deep purple velvet, exuding old money and quiet menace. Todd's assistant, disguised as a PR intern, slipped the package into the hands of two key journalists. Photos, videos, receipts, Sierra and Charles, handsy, intimate, complicit. The story wrote itself. By 8:45 p.m., whispers slithered through the crowd, phones lit up, screens were shared. A woman in pearls gasped. A man in tuxedo muttered, "Is that Charles Whitmore?" Sierra noticed the shift first. The eyes, the tilting heads, the sudden change in air. She froze. Then Evelyn stepped forward. "Sierra," she said, voice smooth and icy, "you look radiant tonight." Sierra blinked. "Thank you, Mrs. Whitmore." Rip. With one swift motion, Evelyn grabbed a fistful of crimson silk and yanked. Gasps exploded. Sierra shrieked, clutching what remained of her dress as sequins scattered like shattered illusions. Her enhanced chest fully exposed, she turned pale under the flashing cameras. "Did you really think," Evelyn hissed, "you could screw my husband and not get dragged out like the trash you are?" The ballroom fell into stunned silence, then chaos. I watched it unfold like theater. Ethan stood stunned, blinking at his half-naked girlfriend, then glancing helplessly around. His gaze landed on me, and I smiled. He staggered toward me. "Madeline, did you do this?" I didn't flinch. "No, you did. I just turned on the lights." He opened his mouth, but nothing came. For once, Ethan Carter had no lines to deliver. Sierra bolted, tripped, fell near the exit. More photos, more laughter. A scandal had been born, not in whispers, but in thunder. Ethan remained standing, now entirely alone in the center of a storm. The same man who once looked down on me with smug superiority now looked like a soaked stray abandoned in the street. I tilted my glass toward him in a silent toast. "You chose this." Later that night, as I slipped away from the collapsing circus, Evelyn caught up with me by the marble staircase. "Well," she said, brushing imaginary dust from her sleeve. "That was fun." I grinned. "And final." Evelyn nodded. "Charles has already packed. The lawyers will have a field day." "And Sierra?" I asked. Evelyn smirked. "The industry won't touch her. She just became radioactive." The gala wasn't just revenge. It was a reckoning. And as I walked into the night, my heels echoing against the pavement, I knew one thing for certain. They would never recover. And I would never be underestimated again. "I don't need your apology," I said, looking Ethan straight in the eye, calm as a lake after a storm. "I just need you to disappear." He nodded silently, signing the divorce papers in front of my attorney. No more words. No tears. No theatrics. Just an ending. Exactly the one I wanted. After that, Ethan left the office. The door closed behind him, and I knew. This was the last time I would ever see the man who once destroyed my life. 6 months later, I stood alone in the grand hall of the Westbridge Hotel, once a battlefield of humiliation, now the sanctuary of rebirth. I had just hosted the launch gala for my own nonprofit, Madeline's Rise, a foundation dedicated to supporting women who had been betrayed, emotionally abused, or left to rebuild their lives after divorce. No more pitying looks, no more whispers behind my back. Just a spotlight shining directly on me, the woman who had once been silenced and had now torn off her shackles with her own hands. My speech that night ended with the words I had never dared to say before. I don't thank the people who betrayed me, but I do thank myself for not breaking. This foundation is a promise that no woman has to endure in silence, and no one has to rise alone. I got back on my feet, and now I'm here to hold the hands of those trying to do the same. Applause thundered around me, but I didn't cry. I just smiled, because this time tears weren't necessary. As the evening wound down, I was speaking to a donor when someone quietly took their place at the end of the well-wishers line. He wore a simple tuxedo, hair slightly tousled, but his hazel eyes held a spark. Warm, steady, electric. "Mrs. Carter," he greeted as his turn came. "I'm Nathan Blake, journalist for Legacy Review, but I'm not here for a story." I raised an eyebrow. "Actually," he continued, "I just wanted to say, I've followed your journey, from the early headlines to the night of the West Bridge Gala, and I believe this isn't just a scandal, it's a manifesto." I smiled. "You're a journalist who speaks like a poet." He laughed. "So, if I asked you out for coffee, what would that make me?" I hesitated, then extended my hand. "I'd say, maybe I'm finally ready to begin again." Slowly. No, I didn't fall in love with Nathan overnight. I didn't rush into another relationship to patch over my scars. But I allowed myself to believe in something good again. A Sunday coffee. A text asking if I'd eaten. A gaze that didn't want to possess, just to walk beside me. I was no longer Madeline Carter, the betrayed wife. I was Madeline Carter, the survivor, the builder, the guide. Ethan? Word had it he moved out of state, trying to escape the wreckage. Sierra? No one mentioned her anymore. Rumors said she tried to reconnect with Charles Whitmore, but Evelyn had made sure every door in the design industry was slammed in her face. I didn't care. I didn't need them to fall for me to rise. I just needed myself, strong enough so that no one could ever break me again. On my desk now sits a photo from the gala. Me standing alone, glass of champagne raised, the foundation's logo behind me. Every time I look at it, I don't just see myself. I see every woman who's ever been betrayed, belittled, or made to believe she couldn't survive, and I whisper to them, we can all rise again, but this time, it's on our terms.